Hey guys, welcome back to Engaging Economics with Bree and Jackie.
Today we are going to be discussing the elements of elasticity and how they relate to everyday life.
As we said last week, elasticity is the responsiveness of buyers and sellers to changes in market conditions. These market behaviors are useful for both consumers and producers as they measure the effects of price, income, and also demand changes.
For this week's segment, we asked our viewers to submit questions about elasticity that they wanted answered. As we received an overwhelming response from our viewers, we do not have time to address all the questions, so let's get right into it.
Okay, we'll start with a question sent in by Sarah R. from Phoenix, Arizona. She said, I understand the basic principles of elasticity, but how would I calculate it to apply it to my business?
So the price demand of elasticity is calculated by percent change in quantity demanded or supplied over percentage change in price. That being said, you should review your business financial records to determine changes in consumer behavior. Taylor B. from Clearwater Beach, Florida asked, how do I know if a specific good is elastic or inelastic?
Well, there are different characteristics that can be attributed to elastic or inelastic good. The first things you want to look at are, does your product have many substitutes or many sellers in that industry? And you also want to look at the changes in price for that good. If the price increases, would more people continue to buy other products instead?
Basically, just how are the changes in price for that good reflected in the demand for that good, and if the demand either increases largely or decreases, then you know that you have a relatively elastic good because they are either moving to different substitutes or they're staying and purchasing whether or not you raise the price, and that would make you a relatively inelastic firm.
For inelastic firms, there's usually very few firms in that industry, and it's kind of a harder industry to enter into for selling your own products, and it's also a product that's very distinguished from other goods. Now would be a great time to stop and talk a little bit about graphs. For perfectly inelastic goods, the demand curve is always vertical, whereas for perfectly elastic goods, the demand curve is always horizontal. For relatively elastic goods, there is always a downward sloping demand curve, which will be relatively more shallow than an elastic good demand curve, which is relatively steeper. This is because there's an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded in the market of consumers. On the other hand, there is a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied in the producer market. As you can see in the two graphs above, there's a shift in the demand curve. Shifts in the demand curve are typically influenced by prices of other goods, preferences and trends, and income. On the other hand, there could be a movement in the point along the demand curve which is caused by price changes. You can also see from the graph that they define a normal good and an inferior good. A normal good is a good where demand rises when your income increases. An example of this would be going out to a restaurant or different things like that. And an inferior good is a good where when your demand falls when your income rises. And an example of this would be ramen or canned soup or other cheaper goods like that. Normal goods are typically more costly, which is why your purchasing power increases when your income increases. But inferior goods are usually cheaper, so then it's easier to purchase and you might have to purchase when your income decreases. Another listener, Maggie S. from Chicago, runs a small boutique selling clothing and accessories. In order to manage her variable costs of the business and increase her total revenue, she recently raised her prices, but then noticed that her products were purchased less frequently from customers. She wants to know why this happened.
So her products are substitutable goods in a relatively elastic market. If her products are more expensive than other boutiques or clothing stores, consumers are more likely to shop elsewhere relative to increases in price. And that is because her products aren't differentiated from others in the market, and so it's easy to just go to a different producer of clothing and get things for cheaper. John A. from Boston said, I am an avid tea drinker to get my morning refreshment. Recently, the government imposed a tax on tea, increasing the prices at all of my local stores. I do not want to continue to buy tea at such a high price, but I don't see any other option. Help. So with tea, there's many substitutes for breakfast beverages such as coffee and juice, and even though it might not be your first choice and what you really like, there are many other substitutes that you could drink to engage your energy and get it up, such as you could drink energy drinks, coffee, juice, and they will all have relatively the same effect on your morning routine, and it'll be cheaper.
If the prices for tea are that drastic that you want to do something about it, then that would be your best option to go to other substitutable goods for your morning breakfast beverages. So Paul D. from New York City said, I am a diabetic and have been using insulin for about 5 years now. Although the prices of medications are constantly fluctuating, there has never been a decrease in price for the insulin that I use daily. Can I expect a change in price anytime soon?
So we would not expect the price of insulin to change anytime soon because insulin is almost perfectly inelastic, and there are only 3 manufacturers in the United States that make insulin, and they can increase the prices as much as they want without a change in demand because it's such a necessity to so many people.
People who have diabetes and require the use of insulin don't really have an option in purchasing insulin or not. Therefore, those producers in the monopolistic market, they can do anything they want with the prices, knowing that consumers will still need the product.
Yeah. And Sam W. from Sugarland, Texas, owns an up-and-coming Italian restaurant that has become the new weekend hotspot. It is one of the few restaurants in that town serving Italian cuisine and has been the talk of the town as the only Italian restaurant with a diverse wine selection. She is considering raising the prices of entrees and wants to know if this would be a good idea.
Well, typically in the restaurant industry, because it is a competitive monopoly, it wouldn't be a good idea to raise the prices of any of your products because that might lead consumers to going to other restaurants instead or looking to spend their money elsewhere. But because of the diversity of this restaurant with the specific wine selection and as it is one of the only few restaurants in town that serves Italian cuisine, it might be a good idea to increase our prices, but not too drastically because that could lead customers away. And also wine is a complement to especially Italian food, but pretty much any dinner entrees for adults looking to get out on the weekend. So consumers still may be drawn to her restaurant despite the increase in entrees to receive the experience and the selection of wine and everything like that. And that's all the time we have for today. We hope you guys learned something useful in this segment about elasticity. Go ahead and comment down below your thoughts for what topic we should cover next week. Don't forget to turn on our notifications to never miss any segments.
And subscribe.
Yes, subscribe. And as always, start engaging with economics.